Hi everybody, and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. There are only 9 graded stakes races at Gulfstream on Saturday, and DRF Handicappers Mike Beer, Matt Bernier, and I will take a look at 3 of the major ones in this edition of Out of the Gate. Of course, the Kentucky Derby Prep, the Grade 2 Fountain of Youth Stakes, of course, the Kentucky Oaks Prep, the Grade 2 Deveau Stakes, and a really nice betting race to close out the card, the Grade 2 McDermott. JK, Jonathan Kinchin's play of the day, focuses on and Gulfstream Pick 4. David Aragona from Timeform US spotlights 3 value plays on the Gulfstream card. Nicole Russo is going to take a look at some of the pedigrees of the major 3-year-old contenders in the Fountain of Youth. And Craig Milkowski's Timeform Pace Projector focuses on the Honey Fox Stakes, also at Gulfstream on Saturday. Plus best bets, horses to watch, and lots more. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our Horse Watch segment. Matt, you found something out in Southern California.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I thought this was a promising debut. This is a horse called Galloping Mischief. This is a debut runner for Richard Mandella. Let's go back to this run last Saturday, down the hill, widest and fastest of all. And you want to talk about fastest of all, this horse is a running fool out there. This is a 3-year-old gelding that, Mandella doesn't normally fire first out of the box. When this horse just comes and absolutely runs over the top of this field, that you're going to see him get a little bit green at the end, pop to his left lead. But I thought this was a very promising effort. He came home in 27:16. I believe the next fastest come home time was almost 28.5 seconds. So this horse really finished. I would imagine if they don't try the main track next out, they'll try to stretch this one out to 2 turns on turf.
That was some serious acceleration in the lane. Mike, your Horse Watch didn't finish like that, but she showed some promise in Stakes Company in New York.
I'd like to take that bat horse to watch her. That horse was really running in the stretch. With Dudley Princess, though, she did a little running in the stretch, too. We'll put up the replay of her race. I like horses like this, Dan. She's a little bit underrated, goes for connections that don't win a ton, but they know what they're doing, and she just shows up and runs every time. This is her 3rd career start on dirt. She's run really well in all of them, and she's a price in this race in a stakes. She didn't really have any chance to win. The horse that wins the race, Stones in the Road, just got loose on the lead. She is now an undefeated 3 for 3. I like the run this horse puts in, though. She was out of it at the top of the stretch. She will get up for second at the end at a big price. This filly's been good in all 3 dirt starts. She's got a little bit of potential.
Over the last few years, the great trainer Todd Pletcher has sent some inexperienced horses to Tampa Bay Downs in order to gain confidence. In 2017, it was Always Dreaming, who ended up winning the Kentucky Derby. Vino Rosso that year also won at Tampa Bay en route to winning the Wood Memorial. Last year, it was Magnum Moon who won an allowance race before doing some really big things on the 3-year-old trail at Oaklawn. And maybe Todd is going to do it again with a 3-year-old named Spinoff, who made his seasonal and 2-turn debut last week at Tampa Bay Downs. They swing into the stretch, and this horse has already taken the lead, and I just love the way he accelerates from this field at about the 3/16 pole. Now, he's going to get a little bit green. He's going to stare off into the stands, but he really finishes well over a horse named Cave Run, who's done some good things earlier this meet at Tampa Bay. Spinoff earned an 84 Beyer speed figure, winning by 11 3/4 lengths. He's a have-to-rugby man, a stakes-placed horse that's a little bit of a goofball in his own right, but he's just got a beautiful pedigree. He's by Hard Spun. His dam was the Grade 1 Acorn winner Zoftig, the dam herself a half to the Grade 1 Mother Goose winner Zo Impressive, and the second dam, a winner of the Grade 1 Celine Stakes. I think we'll see Spinoff in a major Kentucky Derby prep down the road. Perhaps not the Tampa Bay Derby, but maybe we'll see him at Oaklawn Park in a race like the Rebel. Keep an eye on Spinoff for trainer Todd Pletcher. Let's get to some handicapping. The Kentucky Derby prep this week is the Fountain of Youth. Let's throw up the field for a very important Kentucky Derby prep race at Gulfstream Park on Saturday. Race number 13 is the Grade 2 Fountain of Youth Stakes. $400,000 is the purse. This full field is going 1 mile and a 16th. For free formulator pass performances for the Fountain of Youth, head on over to the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. And for expanded stakes previews of all 9 graded races at Gulfstream on Saturday, plus lots more, head on on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. They'll be uploaded by Friday afternoon. This race goes through the Bill Mott-trained Hidden Scroll. And Matt, we talked about Hidden Scroll's pros and cons on the Expanded Stakes preview, the race of the day, of course. In this race, all three of us are going to try to go against the favorite. And Mike, your horse is an undefeated graded stakes winner.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Vekoma can do in here for George Weaver. It's his 3-year-old debut off a little bit of a layoff. So, you know, he has things working against him here. It's a tough field for his first start back. He's never been in a two-turn race before. This will be his first time around 2 turns, and he's given away some recency to some good horses in here. But this horse ran twice as a 2-year-old, and he ran legitimately well in both of them. Let's look at the second of the 2 starts, the Grade 3 Nashua, a 1-turn mile. He got a nice trip in this race, stalking the pace. I like the way he takes it over, and then I like the way he kicks it in here when the runner-up Network Effect comes for him in the stretch. He's a little green here. He's starting to, looks like he's trying to lug in a little bit, but he'll straighten himself out when he sees Network Effect coming, and he finds another gear and finishes this race off. This horse has a lot of talent. I think he might be a square price in here when you consider all the other options and the fact that he's off a layoff, all those things. I'm willing to give this horse a chance in this race if he's a square price.
Gets Lasix for the first time as well for his 2-turn debut and could work out a nice trip sitting in the second flight. Matt, your horse lacks stakes experience, but what he does have is a victory around 2 turns at Gulfstream Park.
Yeah, that came in his most recent run. This is the 8 Global campaign. Let's go and take a look at that one right now. I recognize a lot of people will probably look at it and say, well, didn't really beat a heck of a lot, not a lot of running going on behind him. I don't think Global campaign has ever looked like a loser at any point in either of his 2 lifetime starts. And I can understand some reluctance to really buy into this horse considering he regressed 8 points on the Beyer scale. But Dan, we talked about it in the stakes preview. He paired up his raw time form ratings of 106. Those numbers alone are relatively close. I think the paired up numbers suggest a forward move is coming here, and he's another one that's going to be probably pretty close to double-digit odds.
I want to give the number 1 Code of Honor one more chance for trainer Shug McGahee. We talk about how Bill Mott rarely wins with first-time starters. Shug doesn't win too often with them either, but Code of Honor was a debut winner at Saratoga last summer, and then he made his second start in the Grade 1 Champagne. And we break from the gate in the Champagne and watch Code of Honor go right to his nose right there. And that, I think, compromised his chances just a little bit. We'll pick up the tape in a bit as they turn into the stretch, and you'll see that Code of Honor is very, very wide, swinging into the lane. This is a lot to ask for a horse stretching out a 1/4 mile, facing winners for the first time in start number 2, and he rallies solidly to finish second behind favored Complexity. After this race, Code of Honor had some issues. He missed a start in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, he missed a start in the Remsen, and he made his 3-year-old debut with a very disappointing performance in the Mucho Macho Man Stakes. My opinion of that race is that he was undertrained for that race, that Shug did not have him ready to roll. He has been working bullets over the deep Payson Park surface leading up to the Fountain of Youth. He draws a great inside post position, and I'm hoping that John Velazquez can work out a trip in a race where there is a lot of pace. I'll go with Code of Honor. He's 6-1 on the morning line in the Fountain of Youth. To learn more about some of the pedigrees of the horses running in the Fountain of Youth, we've got Nicole Russo's pedigree pick, and then we'll head on over to Craig Milkowski of Timeform US. He's got a pace projector for the Honey Fox Stakes on the Fountain of Youth undercard.
Hey everyone, Nicole Russo here for Out of the Gate, ready to take a closer look at the Fountain of Youth. Here's the field for the race set for Saturday at Gulfstream Park. It offers 50 Kentucky Derby points to the winner, and it's a chance for a few previous graded stakes winners like Signalman and Vekoma to keep moving forward. But it also represents a chance for Hidden Scroll and Global Campaign to take their first step up to the graded level. Both are coming off impressive wins at Gulfstream. Both are regally bred colts with families that will suggest that they would relish more distance. Let's take a closer look at each of them. First, we'll watch Hidden Scroll as he rolls through the stretch en route to a 14-length win in his 1-mile debut. He earned an eye-popping 104 Beyer. Now, he's by classic-placed hard-spun, sire of champion and Alabama winner Questing, Wood Memorial winner Wicked Strong, and Gold Cup winner Hard Aces. He's from a deep Juddmonte female family that can also route. His second dam is Grade 1 winner Etoile Montat. This is the extended family of multiple Grade 1 winner Sightseek, multiple Grade 1 winner Tate's Creek, European champion and French 1000 Guineas winner Special Duty, Breeders' Cup Mile winner Expert Eye, and others. Now we'll take a closer look at Global Campaign, remaining unbeaten in 2 starts with an allowance optional win at Gulfstream. He's by Classic winner and Classic sire Curlin, in turn by another multiple Classic sire in Smart Strike. Curlin has produced a winner of a Triple Crown race or a colt who is placed in one of those races from each of his crops thus far. Global Campaign's stamina further bolstered by his female family. He's out of an AP Indy mare whose first 2 foals were Sonic Mule, a stakes winner at a mile, and multiple Grade 1 winner Bolt d'Oro, who could win around 2 turns and who was second in the Santa Anita Derby last year to none other than eventual Triple Crown winner Justify. The Fountain of Youth, one of several graded stakes on Saturday's busy program at Gulfstream Park. We're taking you through all of the action on Out of the Gate, and up next, we'll get you over to Craig for a closer look at how to use the Timeform US Pace Projector.
Hi, this is Craig Milkowski for Timeform US for this week's edition of Out of the Gate. Today I'm going to take a look at the Grade 3 Honey Fox. It's being run at Gulfstream Park as the 11th race on Saturday. And the reason it stuck out to me is that we have it highlighted as a race likely to have a fast pace. I do like to pick a race that has some kind of mention of our pace projector. And you can notice on our preview page that I highlighted some of the horses that we expect to contend for the lead and that lead to this label. We have a horse listed as a leader, although interestingly enough, that horse is not shown in front in our pace projector, mostly because she just hasn't run fast enough. But there's also 4 other trackers, which are horses that like to be on or near the front. In this case, we have Valedictorian listed as a tracker shown on a clear early lead. And you'll see from our pre-Ps, which we're going to look at after we take a quick closer look at the pace projector, just why that is. Here's a closer look at the pace projector. You can see Valedictorian is shown in front. This is just a more expanded view. Sometimes some horses will get cut off from that smaller version. If you'll see notes if there are any, like if a horse was adding blinkers or if there was a European shipper who hadn't run here, maybe he's not shown in the pace projector, and it would tell us why. So this is where you would see it, when you'd see this blown up version. Let's take a look at Valedictorian, who we did have listed as a tracker. And looking at the PPs, you can see why. She's won 3 of her last 5 starts, all on turf. She's won twice wire to wire, but she's also shown the dimension where she can rate just off the pace and win. So we don't want to call her a speed horse or a leader, but given the velocity she's shown, she's a horse we expect to be in front. And I also think, despite the fast pace designation, that she's going to run pretty well in here. She's shown she can handle a fast pace if she gets clear and still run well. She's shown she's able to set a slow pace last time. That's as indicated by those blue fractions. But her speed figures are really consistent. She really runs in the upper mid 1 teens. So solid contender here. She's not going to be my selection, as we'll see soon, but I do think she will run well. Next, I want to take a look at the morning line favorite. It's Bella Vase. And, you know, you can see she's won 2 of her last 3. Her speed figures are similar. I just don't think she's all that fast. She's moving up a little bit in competition to the horse that I am going to select eventually. And she's a tepid 3-1 morning line favorite. I actually don't think she's going to go off the favorite. Do want to mention one other thing with her is that you'll see I highlighted that the race 2 back was over a good track. There's a new Timeform US feature where we tell you just how firm we think the track was on a scale of 1 to 10. And the day she didn't run quite as well as the others, her loss where she was beaten for 3.5 lengths in 4th. It could have easily been the fast pace, which we have highlighted in red, but we also think, you know, maybe she didn't handle the softer turf as well. Another horse, the 3rd choice on the morning line at 4-1 is Dolce Lily. And she's a horse, if you just look at her speed figures, I mean, she's solid enough. She always seems to run a race. She's hit the board in each of the 6 starts that I'm showing here. And all of them, the dirt was a little bit of regression speed figure-wise. But on the turf, they're all between 109 and 115. So solid effort, but I just don't think that's going to be good enough to get it done in here. And again, I'm not a big fan of this morning line because I'm going to move on to the horse that I do think is going to win. And for lack of knowing how to pronounce it perfectly, I'm just going to call her Precious. It's a little bit tough to pronounce. I didn't have time to look it up, but she is the 2 horse in here. She runs for Chad Brown, the premier turf trainer in the country, if not one of the premier trainers in the country, period. And she just ran a huge 126 speed figure. It's a race where we do think there's some pace. She has by far the best Timeform US late speed rating, which you can see on that preview page again. I cut that part off on the individual PPs, but it's also shown in our product as well for each horse. You can see them. But I like to compare them on the preview page where you can see them all at one glance. The one note I will make here is you can notice in our race rating right next to the Saratoga August 4th, the race rating was a 120, but we have a little O there. And that's what we call one of our question mark codes, where we don't have complete confidence in the speed figure. In this case, the O means it was the only race. It was the only turf race run at Saratoga that day on the inner surface. There may have been one on the outer. I didn't look, but we treat those as two different courses. So it was the only race run on the inner. And in those cases, what I like to do is I like to click on the top three. You see Uni won the race. In our past performance, you just click on that and it'll open up the chart. And when I do open up that chart, I take a look and see how have the horses done. Have they come back and backed up that figure? And a quick look at the chart here shows that the horses they've all run as good or better, or at least very similar. The third place horse had a slight regression, but the winner has come back to run 2 races. You can actually scroll through the figures and you see the little arrow next to that 122. You can look even further into the future. But despite that designation, it was the only turf race. These figures have held up well, and I have no problem thinking that Precious here is a standout. I don't think we're going to get anywhere near that 7-2 morning line. I'd be surprised if she's not less than 2-1. She'll probably be in the 3-2, maybe even 7-5 range. But this is a horse I'm gonna lean on heavily in both horizontals and verticals. I'm gonna single her. I'm gonna key her in vertical bets and look to make a score elsewhere. Look to get some other horses that I like underneath. So that does it for this week for Timeform US Out of the Gate. I hope you enjoyed that look at the Honey Fox, and I'll be back next week with a new race.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, Timeform US pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. drf.com. Raise your game.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's throw up the field for the Deveau Stakes. Carded as race number 12 at Gulfstream on Saturday. This a 1-turn mile. It is a grade 2 for $200,000. Your 2-5 morning line favorite is 2018 2-year-old filly champion Jaywalk. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races at Gulfstream this weekend and lots more, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike, obviously the story of this race is Jaywalk, but let's talk a little bit about the second choice on the morning line, the number 7 High Regard, graded stakes placed in her own right.
Yeah, not too bad, this filly. She sort of was coming along in stages as a 2-year-old. We're going to show a replay of an allowance race at Keeneland. This is right off of her maiden win, which did come in a 1-turn mile at Churchill. This is her first start after that, a 2-turn mile. And you can see her sort of over in a tough spot there behind horses. She can't get clear, and she's going to have to alter course after the winner has already got the momentum and going by. So I think she actually ran okay in this race. Exiting this spot, she was stakes placed in the Rags to Riches. She ran okay in the Goldenrod, a graded stakes at the end of the year, a race that did not have any pace at all. If she gets a better setup here, she can get a piece of this.
But she, like the rest of the fillies in this race, are going to have them nailed on tight to beat Jaywalk, who did so much in such a short amount of time last year, Matt. I mean, in 4 starts, she went from a 5-furlong maiden winner at Parks to a Breeders' Cup champion.
Yeah, she ran 5 times last year at 5 different tracks, and she'll kick things off here in 2019 at another track. So 6 tracks, 6 races. Let's go back to the Breeders' Cup. She went out there and put the boots to a pretty, well, I suppose it's subpar field, but you have a couple of good horses that have come back and done some good things. Bellafina came back and won a graded stakes race with a 95, and Serengeti Empress, she won her stakes race with a 91. I got to be honest with you guys. I just think she's the controlling speed in here. She's breaking from the rail. I know this is a means to an end, but I couldn't get too cute. I just think she's too much for this field.
Yeah, I go with Matt on this one. She just towers over this field based on what she did as a 2-year-old. We'll see. Listen, maybe you don't want to take a shot against her. This is the time to get her right off the layoff, breaking from the rail. But to me, she just looks too good for these horses.
And she might have a pace advantage as well. It seems like all the stars are aligning for the very talented Jaywalk. I don't want to have too much money in against her, but I will take a little stab with the number 6 Bold Script. It's worth mentioning the quality work that this filly did on turf and synthetic last year at Woodbine. She was 3rd in the Grade 1 Natalma on the grass. And in her synthetic debut, her most recent start, the Princess Elizabeth Stakes, she destroyed this field, going 1 mile and a 16th. She turns into the stretch already taken over this thing, and Gary Boulanger is going to ride her with the utmost confidence. She draws away to win by almost 8 lengths. It's a career best 83 Beyer speed figure. I just wish this filly had more dirt pedigree. She's by Speightstown, who of course can get you a dirt runner, but when you look at the female family, it is all turf and synthetic. What allays my fears somewhat is that Bold Script has worked several bullets over the Palm Meadows dirt training track. Maybe Bold Script is ready to catch the favorite off the layoff. She's going to be a much better price, but you certainly got to use the big favorite as an A in any kind of multiple race wagers. Small stab for me with Bold Script. In the Devona Dale, we'll move to the dirt, to the turf. The McDermott, it looks like a fantastic betting race. Salty older turf horses go 11 furlongs in the McDermott Stakes at Gulfstream on Saturday. Let's throw up the field for race number 14. $200,000 is the purse for expanded stakes previews of all the graded races at Gulfstream on Saturday, plus lots more. Head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. We'll have them all uploaded by Friday afternoon. Matt, Zulu Alpha has just emerged as a consistently good turf runner, and his tactical speed allows him to get great trips, it seems, every time he runs.
Yeah, and you want to talk about a great trip. This is how you draw it up for a turf race. This is the dream situation. Let's go back to the McKnight handicap in his most recent start. You're going to see he's in those pink silks. Arad Ortiz has got the mount. You're saving ground. You're sitting in the pocket. You tip out to the 2-path. Everything just opens wide and you split through. We'll get to Hunter O'Reilly in a little bit on the outside, but I mean, you want to talk about the perfect scenario for a turf trip. It's exactly what this horse got. Now, I think you can look at that one of two ways and say, you're right, he's a nice horse. He usually works out those kind of trips. But at the same time, at a short price, I don't know that I want to gamble on the fact that everything may or may not work out again exactly the way it did in McKnight. I think he is a very logical runner. I want to take a little shot against him, though.
Zulu Alpha is a hot horse. He is a sharp horse. But you could argue, Mike, that on his very best day, Channel Maker is the best horse.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear when you go through this race top to bottom that if Channel Maker shows up and runs his best race in this spot, maybe he will and maybe he won't, but if he does, he's just going to be really hard to beat in this race. I'm willing to give him excuses for his last 2 starts. We're going to go back 3 starts on his card. This is the Grade 1 Joe Hirsch Turf Classic at Belmont Park. He got right to the lead in this race. He turned away a challenger around the 2nd turn of this race, and now he's going to turn away another challenge from Robert Bruce here in the stretch. He stays strongly. He's much the best in this race with a 108 Beyer speed figure. I know he has post-11 guys. Maybe it'll compromise his chances a little bit, but I like that Joel Rosario's back on board this horse. Joel was largely responsible for getting this horse more involved early last summer. I think it led to dramatic improvement for him. And I think even with post-11, Joel's going to make sure he gets forward this time. And to me, he's just the best horse in the race if he shows up.
Excuses in his last 2 races. Wicked speed duel in the Breeders' Cup Turf. Just didn't get anywhere near his customary and comfortable spot near the early lead last time out in the Pegasus Turf. Getting back to Hunter O'Reilly, Matt, you and I both liked him last time despite the long layoff. He was a first-time gelding, and to be honest, I was very proud with the way he ran.
I thought he ran really well, too, when you consider this was off of such a long layoff, a very, very testing turf course there down at Gulfstream that day, very yielding. And then we're going to throw up the replay, and you can see how much ground he's given up in the grand scheme. He's on the far outside, and you know what? Again, considering he had been gone for such a long time, this is far from a disgraceful effort from this horse. I think he's only going to take a step forward here. You're going to get firm going here on Saturday afternoon down at Gulfstream. I don't know, Dan. I think I'm obligated to give him another chance at double digits.
I'm with you. I'm going to go with Hunter O'Reilly as well. I am a little bit concerned about the possibility of firm turf because this is a horse that has had foot problems in his career, and maybe that yielding turf course actually worked to his favor last time out. But that was his first race off the long layoff, as we mentioned, his first race as a gelding. And the last time he went second off the layoff for Jimmy Toner, he earned a 103 Beyer speed figure. He's the kind of horse that is race, luck, and pace dependent. Let's hope he gets a trip under Tyler Gaffalione. He's a good price on the morning line, Hunter O'Reilly at 10-1, and I'll give him a chance as he makes his second start of the form cycle. JK, Jonathan Kinchin's play of the day. He's got a pick 4 wager at Gulfstream, and then David Aragona of Timeform US looks at 3 value plays on Saturday's Gulfstream card. Let's get to those segments right now.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's Play of the Day. Derby season is upon us, the fountain of youth. Next couple of weeks, we got Tampa Bay Derby, then we're at Aqueduct, and Oaklawn, and Santa Anita. It's a very exciting time of the year where these 3-year-olds start to remind us of the possibilities of what can happen with a horse like American Pharoah or Justified, or even your favorite Derby winner that didn't happen to win a Triple Crown. We're going to play a pick 4 at Gulfstream Park. They got a ton of stakes. I think they have 9 graded stakes on Saturday. We're going to play the late pick 4. It's a race starting in race 11, the Honey Fox. This is called my take what the defense gives you play. Now, look, a lot of people make fun of me for the chalk that I pick, but it's a real thing that I do. I find favorites that I can lean on in sequences, and I try to hammer those sequences. If you listen to the podcast, we often say try to crush their souls. I'm going to try to do that in this sequence here with 2 singles and then 2 races where I'm only going to use 2 horses. In the first leg, I'm going to single the 1, Precious, a horse for Chad Brown. He had, first time he had the horse, he ran in Saratoga in the soft. She ran really well that day, was beaten by Uni, who is one of the more talented runners in Chad Brown's turf barn, and she was right there with her on a soft ground. Coming in off quite a layoff, 210 days. The last 3 works have been on the turf course. Chad doesn't usually bring them over there short. This one's shown a ton of talent on that soft course, running a figure that none of these other horses are really getting close to in terms of Timeform US. I'm going to start with a single there. She's 7-2 on the morning line. However, I don't believe she'll be 7-2 in the pick 4 sequence, and I don't even think she'll be 7-2 in the win pool. Going on to the next race, I'm not going to waste much of your time here in the Deveau Dale. I'm ice cold to Jaywalk. I think she's the best 3-year-old filly in the country. She showed that Breeders' Cup Day, and I think she'll show it again here as she gets ready for her trail to the Kentucky Oaks. On to the 13th race. I'm going to use 2 horses here. Code of Honor is not one of them. I get that maybe some people thought the horse had an excuse last time. I thought the horse ran too bad to really lean on here. What should come down from 6-1, I think. I only need 2 horses. Vacoma, the 5 horse for George Weaver, ran really well in some races in New York. I think that horse is sitting on a big race. And then Hidden Scroll. I get it. The flashy number was on a sloppy racetrack. But the thing that I'm most impressed of when it comes to that horse is that it was Bill Mott first out from the rail, showing speed wire to wire. That shows a lot of talent. That's not something that you normally see from Bill Mott horses. I think Hidden Scroll's the real deal. He might not be your Derby winner. I do think he's your Fountain of Youth winner. Going on to race 14, the last leg, 1 3/8 on the turf. I always look to see where Mike Maker has one in here, and he does have one in Zulu Alpha, who ran well last time. I'm going to use Zulu Alpha, and then I'm going to use Channel Maker, who's a horse that I've actually picked in some big grade 1s on these kind of turf marathons. So to not use him in this spot might be a little bit silly. Obviously had an excuse with kind of a weird ride, and then also the yielding surface that showed up on Pegasus World Cup Day. Those are the only 2 I need here. Look, I'm going to try to have this, depending on your budget, I'm going to try to have a $10 pick 4, a $25 pick 4, a $50 pick 4. I'm going to try to hammer this sequence right here in what I think is a very straightforward sequence. There's no reason to really reach outside the box. To me, the favorites are the types that you can lean on. Good luck. We'll see you next week.
Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona with this week's Timeform US Spotlight. There's a smorgasbord of excellent stakes races on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. The Fountain of Youth is the highlight of the entire card, but I want to take a look at 3 of the undercard stakes races, starting with the 5th race, the Canadian Turf. And the number 3 horse, Holiday Stone, is a long shot in this race that I think is really worthy of consideration. Breaking the Rules is going to be a big favorite in this race, coming off 2 visually impressive scores, one at Gulfstream Park and one at Belmont Park. But in his turf debut, he was actually defeated by Holiday Stone way back in September at Saratoga of last year. Holiday Stone ran well that day, earning a 1:23 Timeform US speed figure. A repeat of that number would make him very competitive against this field, and I don't think Breaking the Rules is a horse that necessarily has to win this race as he steps up in class. It's not as if his speed figures make him, any kind of, horse that has a huge edge on this field, and Holiday Stone has run well enough to win stakes races at this level in the past, and his recent efforts are a little bit better than they seem. He was against the pace 2-back, and then last time, if you watch that trip, it's unfortunate, but the chart caller just completely missed the trouble that he had in that Simple Comet outrun inside. This is a horse that was down on the rail coming to the top of the stretch in a race that was completely collapsing ahead of him. He ended up in behind a few speed horses that just were going nowhere. The horses that did well in that El Prado were making wide moves, closing down the center of the track, and Holiday Stone just got robbed of all his momentum while he was steadying down inside in the late stages. He never got a chance to run that day. He's much better than that, and I think the pace situation of this race is going to make him much more dangerous because the Timeform US pace projector is predicting a situation favoring runners towards the front, and he's predicted to be in a solid stalking position. So I think Holiday Stone is an interesting horse to use as an alternative to Breaking the Rules, especially if we get around that 8-1 morning line price. Moving on to the 7th race, in the very one, I want to take a shot with the number 1 horse, Danceland. This is a horse, again, that just had a terrible trip last time. The chart callers didn't miss this one. She was legitimately steady at multiple points in the stretch drive last time. John Velasquez just seemed to, by chance, make all the wrong moves coming into the quarter pole on this horse. She was inside, ridden into traffic. He tried to go outside with her. She encountered traffic again, went back inside at the 8th pole, and there was just nowhere for her to run. He really didn't get a chance to ride her out to the finish, and she finished with way more left in the tank than he would have liked. Danceland handles the mile and 3/16 distance. I think that's actually really perfect for her. She ran well 2-back against solid graded stakes company, the Long Island Handicap. That mile and 3/8, if anything, was a little bit far for her. I think she's going to enjoy the cutback to a mile and 3/16, and I just don't think there's anybody that formidable in this race because Holy Helena, who's the morning line favorite, she's a bit inconsistent at times. I don't think she has to win this race. And Tricky Escape, she's very dangerous at listed stakes races, grade 3 types, which this is, but I mean, she really does have a ceiling. And I think Danceland is a Shug McGahee horse, this classic type of, horse that he has that improves over time, improves with age, and I think she can take another step forward in the very one. 6-1 on the morning line seems like a fair price on this horse. Finally, in the 14th race, the race after the Fountain of Youth, the McDermott, I want to take a shot with a bomb in this race, the number 3 horse, Melmich. I know his recent performances and his recent speed figures just make him look a little too slow, but going back to his Woodbine efforts at the end of 2018, he was in a bunch of slow-paced races that just played out in a fashion that really didn't allow him to use his strengths, and I think his efforts in all of those races are just not quite as bad as they seem. At one time, this was a horse that was certainly classy enough to stack up against a field like this. I mean, there was a time back in 2017 when he was earning Timeform US speed figures of 130 and above. Those numbers would crush this field. Now the question is, can he transfer that synthetic form to turf? And last time out, you might say, oh, well, he only got a 110 Timeform US speed figure. That's not good enough. Well, that was a race that was on the short side for him. He was far back in the early going, and he was just finishing like a freight train through the stretch. He was passing horses at a very high rate. It's not like it was a race that fell apart or anything like that. Even though the Timeform US pace figures are color-coded red, it's not a race that collapsed at the end, and Melmich was just closing much faster than anybody else at the end of that race while having to weave through traffic. I was really impressed just by the visual from a visual standpoint as he was closing that day and galloped out so strongly. He's going to have no trouble stretching out to the mile and 3/8 because he's won as far as a mile and 3/4 on the synthetic track. And just looking through his main competitors in this race, Channel Maker, who's going to be the favorite, I know he's the class of the field, and he will win if he gets back his best performances from 2018, but he's been somewhat fortunate in his big wins, and I just don't think Channel Maker is necessarily at the same place that he was back in 2018, and he's a little bit hard for me to take off that dull effort in the Pegasus Turf Invitational last time. And then the number 6 horse, Zulu Alpha, another one that's likely to take money. He got an awesome trip last time in the McKnight under Rod Ortiz, just got through at the right time in a race that was about to fall apart, got the jump on his main rivals, and I'm not sure that I really like him getting back on a firm turf course. He's a horse that's appreciated some giving the ground in the past, and I think both of these favorites are vulnerable. Melmich is getting a rider switch to Javier Castellano. He's going to be a big price in this race, and I think he's going to make a big run at the leaders late and can get into the top 3. I'll use him to win, but I also want to use this horse in exactas and trifectas. So that's 3 horses that may offer some value on Gulfstream Saturday card. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Great racing at Gulfstream on Saturday. Matt, where are you going?
I'm going to Gulfstream. Race number 5. It's the Canadian Turf at a mile on grass, obviously. Look, this may not be the most likely winner of the race, but the short comment line for the number 3 Holiday Stone, a little bit on the uncharitable side. The short comment says outrun inside. Let's throw up the tape. You tell me if this is outrun inside. He's the number 2 right now, and it looks like he's ready to roll beneath Amicia Jaramillo. He's down on the inside. The problem is, again, we talk about it in turf racing all the time. You're at the mercy of pace and trip. Well, the pace was there for him to run at. The problem is the trip just didn't develop, because at this point, everyone else is coming on the far outside. They've got a full head of steam, and this horse, Holiday Stone, is buried inside of horses, and he's ultimately going to end up almost in dead last, shuffled back. He never at any point is allowed to get going, and I just think that this race is considerably better than it looks. I think there are also 3 other races prior to that you can make excuses for. You go through all those, you're left with a pretty big effort up at Saratoga with a 96 buyer. He's 8-1 on the line. He was not outrun inside. He just never had a chance to run.
That's why you watch races, folks. He wasn't outrun inside. Mike, that looked like one of those Meadowlands 3-hole trips that didn't work out. Where are you going with your best bet?
Yeah, I'm going to Gulfstream as well. Race 7's the very 1 grade 3 on the turf mile and 3/16. I like the 1 Danceland, a typical runner from this barn, just sort of getting better with racing. Danceland for Shug McGahee. I liked the campaign she put together last year as a 4-year-old. She ran well on the Long Island, I thought, 2 starts back, closing ground throughout. This is her next start, her most recent start down at Gulfstream Park. We're going to look at the replay now. This is another, it's sort of similar to Matt's horse. This horse was buried around the 2nd turn behind horses. You can see Johnny V in the stretch. He just can't get anywhere for her to run, and she will wind up last. From here, she just doesn't have any chance. I think she's better than she looks on paper. I think this is a good distance for her, and at the end of the day, this is just the kind of race where I don't really like the favorites in this race. I think she's as good as any of them. With the right trip, I think she can win.
I'll go to a Gulfstream turf race as well. Race number 4 is the grade 3 Palm Beach for 3-year-olds on the grass, and I'm hoping that the number 6 Louder Than Bombs can turn the tables on the number 5, A Thread of Blue. They faced each other earlier last month in the Dania Beach Stakes, and we'll turn into the stretch of that race. The Thread of Blue just got absolutely loose that day as the favorite. Louder Than Bombs is kicking down towards the inside, and you can see that Paco Lopez wants to try to angle out 3 wide, and that's just not there. He's going to have to tap on the brakes ever so slightly. Now he's going to come through down towards the inside. He probably doesn't catch A Thread of Blue if he gets through with a perfect trip, but I thought all in all the horse ran well to be second. This time around, A Thread of Blue is even money on the morning line, and there just might be a little bit more pace to keep that horse company on the front end. I'm hoping that Louder Than Bombs would benefit from a faster pace this time around. He's 3-1 on the morning line, and he switches to Irad Ortiz Jr. We thank you for watching Out of the Gate this week, and we urge you to follow all of DRF TV's offerings. Please follow on social media at DRF Video. And for the latest news and notes from America's Turf Authority Daily Racing Forum, please follow on Twitter at DRF Inside Post. That's it for us this week. Best of luck when your horses break.